I'm live. I found another book. I bought this book in 2013 because December 12th I bought it, and I said to me, and I started to read it in February 2013, and I never finished it. 2013 was a very busy life for me, and so I came across it last night. It is called Life in the World Unseen, and it's written, says here, by Anthony Borgia. And I decided last year, I read 3 books aloud, which I thoroughly enjoyed reading aloud, and it was good therapy for the times we are in. So I'm reading this one. It's old. I can't see when it's been published. It's old. I don't know how old. Foreword is by Sir John Anderson, Bart. Full stop. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity of writing the foreword for this volume, which gives a vivid and picturesque picture of life in the spiritual spheres, experienced by those who have lived their earth life in accordance with the divine law. This also confirms what I have found to be true during my investigations with regard to the philosophy of thought. This will reassure those who are now living a life of good purpose and encourage others to change their wavelength of thought, and so avoid their entry into the dark spheres of the spirit world as a consequence of their acceptance of the evil vibration on earth, which have brought so much tribulation to this world. Thought is the creative force of the universe, as is our every action is the result of thought, for good or evil. As we pass through this earth life, we build our inheritance in the world of spirit, which will be no more and no less than the reflection of the quality of our thoughts, desire, here. Cause and effect is an immutable universal law. Man is a free agent to act in accordance with his free will of thought. What happens to the soul when it enters the world of spirit is the result of the selective choice of the ego on earth. The punishment for evil is the remorse of the immortal soul, inflicted entirely by the personal reaction of the individual's consciousness, of the individual conscience. In the past, the responsibility of life and the consequences of individual action have been obscure to the mass mind of humanity. For this reason, the orthodox religions have failed to establish the peace of the world as envisaged by the great master. Civilization is the parting of the ways, and it is to be hoped that more informative literature such as this will be forthcoming to enable the spiritual regeneration of the world to proceed, so that peace and harmony may reign supreme. This was Sir John Anderson Bart, and it was his foreword. Preface. Knowledge is the best antidote for fear, especially if that fear should be of the possible or probable state of existence after we've made the change from this life to the next. To discover what kind of place is the next world, we must inquire of someone who lives there and record what is said. That is what has been done in the present volume. The communicator, whom I first came to know in 1909, 5 years before his passing into the spirit world, was known on earth as Monsignor Robert Hugh Benson, a son of Edward White Benson, former Archbishop of Canterbury, 1871 to 1914. Until the present scripts were written, he had never communicated with me directly, but I was once told by another spirit friend that there were certain matters he wished to set right. The difficulties of communication were explained to him by spirit friends and advisers, but he held to his purpose. And so when a suitable time was reached, he was told that he could communicate through a friend of his earthly days, and has been my privilege to act as his recorder. The first script was composed under the title of Beyond This Life, the second under that of The World Unseen. In the former, the communicator gives in a general survey an account of his passing and his subsequent travels through various parts of spirit lands. In the latter script, he deals at much greater length with a number of important and interesting facts and facets of spirit life, upon which previously he had touched only lightly or in passing. For example, in Beyond This Life he mentioned the highest realms and the lowest. In the world unseen he actually visits them and describes what he saw and what took place in both regions. Although each of the two scripts is complete in itself, the second greatly extends and amplifies the first. Together they form a composite whole. We are old friends, and his passing has not severed an early friendship. On the contrary, it has increased and provided many more opportunities of meeting than would have been possible had he remained on earth. He constantly expresses his delight upon his ability to return to earth in a natural, normal, healthy and pleasant manner, and to give some account of his adventures and experiences in the spirit world. As one who, being dead, as many would regard him, yet speaketh. This is Anthony Borges writing. Contents. Right. Part 1. Beyond This Life. My earth life. Who I am really matters not. Who I was matters still less. We do not carry our earthly positions with us into the spirit world. My earthly importance I left behind me. My spiritual worth is what counts now, and that, my good friend, is far below what it should be and what it can be. Thus much as to who I am, as to who I was, I should like to give some details concerning my mental attitude prior to my passing here into the world of spirit. My earth life was not a hard one, in the sense that I never underwent physical privations, but it was certainly a life of hard mental work. In my early years I was drawn towards the church because the mysticism of the church attracted my own mystical sense. The mysteries of religion, through their outward expression of lights and vestments and ceremonies, seemed to satisfy my spiritual appetites in a way that nothing else could. There was much, of course, that I did not understand, and since coming into spirit I have found that those things do not matter. They were religious problems raised by the minds of men, and they have no significance whatever in the great scheme of life. But at the time, like so many others, I believed in a wholesale fashion, without a glimmering of understanding, or very little. I taught and preached according to the orthodox textbooks, and so I established a reputation for myself. When I contemplated a future state of existence, I thought, and that vaguely, of what the church had taught me on the subject, which was infinitesimal small and most incorrect. I did not realize the closeness of the two worlds, ours and yours, although I had ample demonstrations of it. What occult experiences I had were brought about, so I thought, by some extension of natural laws, and they were rather to be considered as incidental than of regular occurrence, given to the few rather than to the many. The fact that I was a priest did not preclude me from visitations of what the church preferred to look upon as devils, although I never once, I must confess, saw anything remotely resembling what I could consider as such. I did not grasp the fact that I was what is called, on the earth plane, a sensitive, a psychic, one gifted with the power of seeing, though in a limited degree. This incursion of a psychic faculty into my priestly life I found to be considerably disturbing, since it conflicted with my orthodoxy. I sought advice in the matter from my colleagues, but they knew less than I knew, and they could only think of praying for me, that these devils might be removed from me. Their prayers availed me nothing. That was to be expected, as I now see. Had my experience upon a had my experiences been upon a high spiritual plane, there is the chance that I could have been regarded in the light of a very holy man. But they were not so. They were just such experiences as occur to the ordinary earthly sensitive. As happening to a priest of the Holy Church, they were looked upon as temptations of the devil. As happenings to one of the laity, they would have been regarded as dealings with the devil, or as some form of mental aberration. What my colleagues did not understand was that this power was a gift. A precious gift, as I understand now, and that it was personal to myself, as it is to all those who possess it, and to pray to have it removed as senseless, and to pray to have it removed is as senseless as to pray that one's ability to play the piano or paint a picture might be removed. It was not only senseless, it was unquestionably wrong, since such a gift of being able to see beyond the veil was given to be exercised for the good of mankind. I can at least rejoice that I never prayed for release from these powers. Pray I did, but for more light on the matter. The great barrier to any further investigation of these faculties was the Church's attitudes towards them, which was and is unrelenting, unequivocal, narrow, and ignorant. However long, final judgment was always the same, and its pronouncements unvarying. Such things have their origins in the devil. And I was bound by the laws of the Church, administering its sacraments and delivering its teachings, while the spirit world was knocking upon the door of my very existence, and trying to show me for myself to see what I had so often contemplated, our future life. Many of my experiences of psychic happenings I incorporated into my books, giving the narrative such a twist as would impart to them an orthodox religious flavor. The truth was there, but the meaning and purpose were distorted. In a larger work, I felt that I had to uphold the Church against the assaults of those who believed in the spiritual survival of bodily death, and that it was possible for the spirit world to communicate with the earth world. And in that larger work, I ascribed to the devil, against my better judgment, what I really knew to be nothing other than the working of natural law beyond and entirely independent of any orthodox religion, certainly of no evil origin. To have followed my own inclinations would have entailed a complete upheaval in my life, a renunciation of orthodoxy, and most probably a great material sacrifice, since I had established a second reputation as a writer. What I had already written would then have become worthless in the eyes of my readers, and I would have been regarded as a heretic or a madman. The greatest opportunity of my earthly life I thus let pass. How great was that opportunity, and how great were my loss and regret, I knew when I had passed into this world, whose inhabitants I had already seen so many times and on so many different occasions. The truth was within my grasp, and I let it fall. I adhered to the Church. Its teachings had obtained too great a hold on me. I saw thousands believing as I did, and I took courage from that, as I could not think that they could all be wrong. I tried to separate my religious life from my psychic experiences, and to treat them as having no connection with one another. It was difficult, but I managed to steer a course that gave me the least mental disturbance, and so I continued to the end, when at last I stood upon the threshold of that world, of which I had already had a glimpse, of what befell me when I ceased to be an inhabitant of the earth and passed into the great spirit world. I hope now to give you some details. I finish this here. I'll do the next one